Yes, and good morning again. We got cut off in the middle of that, and I really thought it was important. So we just simply have to do another episode on this. I was reading in regard to the appearance of Barbilo, and I am reading from the Seth Treatise, where he says, later in the Steles, he refers to Barbilo as the male virgin from which the luminaries were born. He is supposed to have become he's the third luminary, Seth, luminary of saints. His words do not sound saintly to me, but he makes mention of his sister Sophia in high regard, but also mentions her actions were without guile. So we're going to go back to the beginning part here, in which we were describing the emergence. And I'm going over this because I feel it has some very interesting information in reference to the first children and the first luminaries. So, sorry about that. So many things to cover. Okay. From the light of the Anointed One comes the four luminaries, and these stand before the divine self-generated, and these are the 12 aeons that stand before the child of the Great One, the self-generated one, the anointed by the will and grace of the invisible Spirit, and these belong to the child, the self-generated, and established by the will of the Holy Spirit through the self-generated. And we, of course, are reading from the early part of the Nag Hammadi library, right after Barbilo conceives. And so it's looking as though it says the self-generated one, the will of the Holy Spirit. Okay, read that sentence again. From the light of the Anointed One comes the four luminaries, and these stand before the divine self-generated, and the 12 aeons that stand before the child of the Great One, and the self-generated one, the anointed one by the will and grace of the invisible Spirit, and these belong to the child, the self-generated, and established by the will of the Holy Spirit through the self-generated. What I see this is referring to is the Holy Spirit. The will of the Holy Spirit comes through the female, and the self-generated comes through the male, divine aspects. Now Sophia, who did not have a partner, gave birth without consent, with the conception of the invisible Spirit and no foreknowledge, and because of the invisible power within her, her thought was not idle. An imperfect being came in and did not resemble its mother. We need to set the ground rules here. Sophia saw it was not good, and it changed into the figure of a snake with the face of a lion. Right there, you have to say, oh, excuse me, this is a divine being giving birth to a being that looks like a snake. His body is a snake, and his head is a lion. The lion is from the lion of God, and the snake is from the snake of Set. That's clearly what it is. So it's pretty obvious. The father of Yaldabaoth has to be Set, the snake god. Its eyes were like flashing bolts of lightning. It casts away from her and outside the realm so that none of the immortals would see it. She had been ignorant of what she carried. She surrounded it with a bright cloud and put a throne in the middle of the cloud so that no one would see it except the Holy Spirit, who is called the Mother of all. She named her offspring Yaldabaoth. Now, it says here she had been ignorant of what she carried. And of course, most women or beings that are pregnant know that they're pregnant. But in her case, she was unaware of it. And what we see earlier is that she came forth without fullness. And I was looking for that where that says that. But all the beings of the fourth luminary from Eleth came into being without fullness, So Sophia is clearly not in her full form when all of this happens. That is supposed to happen at the end of that aeon, which is the 13th aeon, and the beginning of the 14th aeon, which is at hand. So then Yaldabaoth's world order comes on page 115. This is the first ruler, the Archons. He took great power from his mother, stole it. Then he left her and moved away from the place where he was born. He took control and created for himself other aeons with luminaries, fire, which still exists some, and he mated with the mindlessness in him, masturbated essentially, and produced authorities for himself. So he took his mother's light and then created through his own sex these other authorities. 1. Athaloth, the Reaper. 2. Harmas, the jealous eye. 3. Kalila, Umbri. 4. Yabal. 5. Adonias, who is called Sabaoth. 6. Cain, generations called the sun. 7. Abel. 8. Abrasid. 9. Yobel. 10. Armuphiel. 11. Melcher, Akbonian. And 12. Belias, over the depth of the underworld. From the foreknowledge of perfect mind, through the expressed will of the invisible spirit and self-generated, came the perfect human, the first revelation of the truth. The virgin spirit named him Pigurdamas and appointed him to the first realm of Harmosel. Its powers dwell within it, and the invisible one gave him the power of an invisible mind. So what we're saying here is there's a difference between what God and Barbelo created is a different world altogether than what Yaldabaoth created. They named their first offspring Pigurdamas, and in our world they named him Adam. So we were going to go on with that, but I wanted to express to you more clearly. Its powers dwell within it. The invisible one gave him the power of an invisible mind. Perdamus praised the invisible spirit. Because of you, everything has come into being, father, mother, child. And he appointed Seth to the second eternal realm luminary. And in the third realm were stationed the offspring of Seth, Devathai, souls of saints. And in the fourth realm were stationed the souls who were ignorant of the fullness. They did not know immediately, but were held out for a while, repenting later. And these went to Eleph, and that is where Sophia went. So I'm sorry for jumping around here, but we're seeing two different things, and I'm trying to draw differences and correlations. Okay, from the realm of Yaldabaoth. He stationed 7 kings for a sphere of heaven, and had 5 to reign over the depths of the abyss. He shared his fire with them, but not the power of the light which he had stolen from his mother. He became ignorant darkness, the darkness which does not know. The ignorant darkness blended with light and made darkness shine. When light mixed with darkness, it became gray gloom. And we'll skip a little bit of all the different names and this and that. You probably don't need to know all of that, but each has a sphere of its own realm, and they were named after the glory above, from the destruction of the powers, so that they could destroy powers given to the spheres made by the glory above. So he deliberately made these archonic beings so that they could destroy the powers of the spheres from the glory above, indicating clearly that his powers were not as great. He organized everything after, or mimicked, the patterns of the first aeons that had come into being, so that he might create everything in an incorruptible form, but he couldn't know that because he was corruptible. but he, not truly knowing what that was, as he had never seen that, only the power that is in him being taken from his mother, had the imprint of the pattern of the uncorruptible, and he tried to mimic it, ascending to that pattern, but of course could not. When he saw his creations and the throng of angels around him that had come from him, he said to them, I am a jealous God, and there is no other God before me. Right. And some angels thought, if there is no other God, of whom should he be jealous? Right. So then we're moving into page 117, Sophia repenting. The mother began to become agitated, sensing the light which had been stolen from her, and she began to be ashamed, for the arrogant one, her offspring, thought no one else before life existed, but he and his mother, and now the throng of angels before him, from whom he kept the truth of his mother and from the before. And when she realized the trappings of the darkness that had been created by bringing into being without her partner, the appointed one, and she repented with many tears. Okay, so you see the picture that I put up with this episode is the picture of God creating Adam. He didn't actually create Adam. He actually created Pigger-Damas. But the picture is of very ultimate importance, because if you look closely at the image of God, you will see he is wearing a pink flowing robe with what looks to be a tie under the breast, and you can clearly see breasts on God. Yes, folks, there are breasts on God, and he's in a pink flowing robe. And you see him in this pink flowing robe in several of Michelangelo's paintings. And you will see the presence of breasts there. This is strongly indicating to me that Michelangelo knew that the mother-father were together when they created the first offspring, and he was trying to express that to us. It's not the kind of thing that many people notice unless you know what you're looking for. And certainly even Seth himself says it when he says, and I said it at the beginning of this one here, I praise you as God. You are a Mirotheos. He refers to Barbelo as the male virgin from which the luminaries were born. So it looks to be that we're getting confirmation from several different sources on what I have just said. The natures of the rulers. This is on page 192 of the Archons. The rulers plotted together and said, let us make a deep sleep fall upon Adam. So Adam slept. Let's go on with that. We'll go back to how he actually came. Adam came from two virgins. We read that. The spirit and the earth virgin. Christ was born of a virgin to correct the fall that happened in the beginning. And then the two trees, and now the nature. The deep sleep was one of ignorance. They cut open his side like a living woman. Then they repaired his side with flesh in place of her spirit, and Adam had only a soul. The woman of spirit came into him and spoke to him, saying, Arise, Adam. When he saw her, he said, You have given me life. You will be called the mother of the living, for she is my mother. She is the physician woman who has given birth. And I rest my case.